What is going on? And we're live
Yes,
on the
sir.
first row Intersations. What's going on, cousin? How you doing today?
Man, I'm living, man. What's going on, cousin? It's been a while.
Oh man, it's been a long, long while. You move out the state, I move out the state. So I guess we gotta, rely on technology to make it happen. So
Yes, sir. Had to, man. Oh, let me turn the volume down on my other one. So I got the chat on my left. I got the video on my right. You know how we do it, man. Make sure. Hey, what up, cousin? Gatewood. That's my blood cousin right there too, man. We all family though.
right. Same hood, same blood.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm gonna put myself on mute. I know you wanted to introduce the topic, so let's go.
Okay. Well, as always, just kind of like with the Wednesday word that I do, this Intersations, what it's going to be is a place where interviews meet conversations. So I have tons and tons of conversations with friends, with family, with business associates about various topics. And these conversations, they kind of sometimes go deep. And so I thought the best idea to bring to the forefront would be Intersations, my conversations and an interview. So today I have invited a very good close friend. I refer to him as Cousin Mo. We've grown up together in the same neighborhood, but I've invited him to participate in the very first inaugural. What is it? Inaugural? You're better with big words than I am, cousin. Is it an inaugural?
I think you're right there.
All right, I got a word right. Maiden voyage of the first row Intersations. I really want this to be an interactive thing. The live chat feed is open. Please engage during the interview and during the conversation. Please engage with each other. Hey, Jen, what's going on? And just enjoy this experience. I kind of feel like we've gotten to the place where TV was had the opportunity to be interactive and it didn't. So I want you guys to participate. This is very much a thing for you as it is a thing for me. I plan on growing, so I hope you plan on growing. Other than that, I'm going to give the floor now to Moses. Let him go ahead and introduce himself, and we're going to get started jumping right in. Go ahead.
Moses Jenkins, like my cousin Rose said. I call him Cousin Ro. I don't know him by any other name. Man, I got to get me one of them headsets. But, I work in like a call center type environment. So I wear that all day. I get home, man. I be like, man, I need my headphones. That's it. So,
Right?
yes, sir. So we go back a long ways, man. It's been probably the most part of my life I've known you, right? Are you on mute?
My bad. See, I told you it's going to be a trial and error. But since
Yes,
Ashland,
sir.
Oregon, gate at Martin Luther King going to see Shakespearean festivals, they don't know
Yeah,
nothing about
yeah.
that. They don't
So
know
that's
nothing
seventh
about that.
grade. We go all the way. So there's a couple of other cats too. That got to be Justin Williams, Matthew Haynes, all I think most of us was on there. Those ones, and you remember Crandall Rankins,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
absolutely. So yeah, we definitely got some experiences from the whole spectrum, and that's definitely what kind of compelled me to say, yeah, when you call, I'm answering the phone the best I can. So
Hey, I
I like
like
the
that, brother.
concept though. I like the concept of bringing brothers together. Some of our conversations are probably lost in the barbershop. The media depicts them either through music and hip hop, and that's not
Right.
going to be the most enlightening. Some of the gospel rappers, even though I consider them dope, spiritual, positive uplift, that's not really getting the platform or the audience that it could. So they're really missing some of the real reflections that brothers have. So I'm glad you created a platform for that, and I look forward to our conversation.
All right, brother. Well, let me tell the people why I have you here. As far as for me, fortunately, when you've known somebody as long as I've known Moses, you're able to watch them grow from childhood, literally seventh grade. I was in the eighth grade when he was in the seventh. I watched him grow as a seventh grader all the way to the man that he is today. And one thing I can say that comes to my mind when I think about Moses is his growth. He is a person who has transformed multiple times in his life where I mean, we used to run the streets, little knuckleheads, to being as articulate as he is now, and the things that he has to offer, being a father, being a husband, those things that we didn't see in the beginning have now come into the light because of his willingness to be transformational. So, Moses, I really want to start this conversation off with the simple question to you is, for you, in your definition, what does it mean to be transformational?
Let me make sure I'm not on. Okay, I'm not on mute. All right, and what does it mean to be transformational? See, that's not a simple question to me. Transformational is that process. We are on a journey. It's something that happens in many phases, in many forms. There's things that impel us to transform. There's things that so external things that cause us to be transformational. There's also the internal. I think some of it is natural transformation being any event or occurrence that causes one to change. That's how I would kind of define it. So, what does it mean to be transformational? That's that willingness. And I think that's a conscience thing, right? Like
Right.
there's a conscious resistance that many of us may have experienced at certain points. So, when we're dealing with our own standards, our own preconceived notions, our biases towards things in the good ways and in the bad, we may have that wall up that will not permit us to move from where we're at. And so, therefore, we're not able to transform. So, you could take this one person, and I'll give an example because I've traveled a little bit. One person who was all I've known was my neighborhood up until the point of before travels, and which is kind of not true. I was born in Germany and then moved around, finally settled down in the neighborhood where I was raised at. But once I was there, I was on that rock. I was standing on my square, and I was with the people who I was with, the families. My dad was their dad. My mom cooked chicken dinners, and we watched fights together. Heck, we even got into fights together. And what I knew was them, and what they knew was me. And I was open. I was natural. It was all right. I didn't need to, put guards up, and I was comfortable there. And that mentality was a part of me. But then moving into a space of traveling, taking that mentality and what I learned even there, stand up for your rights, be more aggressive in situations, don't let people walk over you. All of these mentalities didn't really fit well in other environments. And
Right.
so at that point, it required me to look inside of myself and say, well, am I willing to adapt what I personally believe to be true, my standards, what I'm going to do in order to go along, to get along, or in order to have those good conversations, or in order to be edifying to those who I'm with, or will I just stand on my own square? So that's one of those things that challenged me. And I still struggle with that. Don't, I'm not on a high horse. There's some situations where I get into them and I'm just like, nope, standing on my square, not willing to change, not willing to submit to the ambiance or to the authority of the broader community. But in many instances, it has been better for me to adjust and to accommodate even that side of me that is like, you know what, I think I know it, I think I got it. But even though I know it, let me make myself open and vulnerable to this situation. So transformational is an ongoing process. We're all on a journey, and it is that willingness to overcome even those parts of ourselves that we hold to be the most true.
Man, well then why are we even sitting here having a conversation? You see what I mean when I say conversations go deep? We could just end it right there.
That's it. Drop it, man. Now, but
Drop
they
the
got to get
mic.
some context. We got to humanize it. That's the theoretical framework, but how do
Right,
we
right.
keep it human, right? Yeah, yes, sir.
Exactly. And that's a lot of the things that you said resonate with me, that willingness to say, okay, I built this wall, and that wall may have served a purpose for the time in which you built it. For instance, growing up in the neighborhood we grew up in, I had to build a wall and make a decision on just something as simple as how I spoke. When I was with my friends, yeah, I can speak slang, but at the end of the day, I had to make sure that I was working on my craft, honing my craft for speaking and articulating my thoughts in a clear and concise manner. So that wall that I built between me and my peers was, hey, I understand we can probably shoot slang with the best of them. But oh, somebody just said you're spot on, by the way. My girl Teresa from Utah says you're spot on, Mo.
Thank
Um,
you, lady.
but as I built that wall amongst my peers, saying, okay, it's cool. There's times where we can talk slang, but there had to be times where slang wasn't appropriate. And in what we're doing even right now, having the ability to transfer our transition between how we speak, maybe when we're comfortable and just talking with each other, versus how we speak when we're trying to make sure that everybody can understand us and everybody can be included with our conversation. That might be two different things. I can use slang with you that you'll get because we came from the same place. I might use that slang with somebody else and they're like, what I don't know what that means. So going back to that wall, we establish these walls and they may serve a purpose and they may be good walls for the time being, but you have to know when to take your wall down. And that really comes down to having humility and being able to accept that you don't know it all at where you established that wall at. So if you just want to stay where you knew before that wall was established, you're not going to grow. You're going to be very complacent and you're not going to move forward and expand into things of life. Um,
Absolutely.
you said we do have to humanize it because, like you said, that's real theoretical. So we're out here right now, outside of the screen.
Hey,
What
I
I
love to
want
be out there, man. I love to be out there. So we can we can do whichever one.
we should ask everybody if they want to be outside the screen, but we're gonna bring it back to the human element. I want to humanize it, just like Moses said. Starting with that human element, can you do me a favor and actually share? I, I'm kind of on the fence on how I want to do this, but I want you to share with everybody a little bit about who you are today. And then I want you to work backwards and kind of run through a couple of milestones that who you were previously.
All right, got you. So who am I in today? I am a veteran. I am a husband. I'm a father. I am a alumnus, a great alumni of the Morehouse College,
Mm.
the Morehouse College. And that's a journey in itself. Like any of these topics, we can go right back outside the box, any of them. And so I'm also a professional. I do work in corporate America.
Okay.
And I think that's a little bit of, but I'm also a friend. So I got to put that on there as well. I'm also a friend. So where I am today, I'm at a space of learning. I'm at a continuous hunger for learning. I realize that even the K through 12 education system, as great as it was at Grant High School and as good as it was at Martin Luther King Jr. Junior High School, shout out King, and they STEM program that they put in there and technical academy, whatever they did, it was phenomenal. As well as Babcock Elementary and Castory Elementary. Shout out
Cast.
Castory, and you know it. And so that education was good, right? It gave me the math, the science. It gave me social conditioning in my neighborhood. It taught me how to make friends, how to get rid of some friends. It taught me to have aspirations and dreams. It showed me that there are different industries and fields that we can work in. And despite what some people believe, there were mentors in that neighborhood: the Crandall Rankins, the pastors, the religious folks, but also some of the elders, the Harry Block, who was definitely in the community activism, him as well as the Robertson Family Development. I think that's what it's called. But I
Mm-hmm.
see some of the works that they're doing, and on a social aspect, politics such as Alan Warren, Councilmember Alan Warren. You remember Alan Rowe?
Yes.
Alan
Yes.
Rowe's significant impact in transitioning high school graduates into their college phase, their college of choice, be it HBCUs that he preferred, but whichever one you wanted to go to, the man had connections and he was able to get us there. So we had mentors and everything. So where I am today is a direct reflection of that upbringing. And so
Okay.
trying to go backwards, I can start at more or less. Corporate America was a decision that happened because there were some mentors and champions and connected people at Morehouse College, where I
Mm-hmm.
got my degree from. So those two tie together. I would not have been able to get my degree had I not been a husband, because my wife stepped in at a time of a critical junction. She stepped in at a time when I had just got out of the military, honorable discharge for medical reasons. And so I was a bit broken and a bit hurt. I'm still suffering and suffering in my own silence, but I had a wife who was there to see some potential in me that even I couldn't see. She took me from a position of, hey, I just want to be a rapper, to, hey, you can be a rapper as well as get you a job and start saving some money. You might get you a keyboard. She even got me a keyboard at that, but she was like, you got to get your own microphone. So she was there in my corner even then, and it was like, hey, if you want to get a better job so you can get better studio equipment, then get a better, what I'm saying, go to college, get your education and those things.
Right.
And that's crazy because our marriage was the result of the children that we have. And so mother of my children, I needed to be there for my children. That was a part of my healing. Thanks, cousin. That was a part of my healing and a part of my episode. Much of that came from, good parenting, a good household, and back at Grant High School. So I think I just gave you my life in a reverse chronology. You got to tell us about yours a little bit. So there you go. That was
Ah.
like 15, 20 years in the making, too. So I graduated 2000 from high school and then didn't go to Morehouse College until 2013, like 13 years later. I got a
Right.
picture and it was like 20 years old. I first wanted to go to Morehouse College probably when I was in the seventh or eighth grade. I used to have a Morehouse starter jacket. So,
Mm-hmm.
that was like the 90s, 90s, 95, 96. That's where I wanted to go. The school of Martin Luther King Jr. I went to Martin Luther King Jr. Junior high school. It was something that I wanted to do. So made
Right.
that happen. But it took military, it took a good wife, strong family. Once I got there, they were connected as they said they were. The alumni network was able to, and the professors there took me under their wing, said, "Hey, we got to get this brother some opportunities." They gave me the opportunities, and then corporate America today. So,
Okay.
bang,
Bang bang.
bang, bang.
One of the things that stood out, and it's funny because that's similar to my story, but one of the things you said that stood out was potential, and I I, I have seen in my lifetime tons of potential wasted, and it kind of got me along this path of thinking like, well, then what really is potential? Because it's not a guarantee. It's not something that is necessarily um, yeah, really guaranteed that you're going to achieve. And so I had to start looking at potential as there's actually two different categories of potential. There's potential. There's potential that somebody might come in, open my door, and then I'd have to fight them out of my house because they shouldn't be in my house. But then there's potential that's actionable, where somebody's knocking at my door. And that is potentially a person who is going to enter into my home. And so, what I learned about myself, and I learned this, and it's very much the way that you learned it. The person I was in a relationship with, we had just started dating, and I remember I myself was on welfare. I went through a pretty bad experience, was trying to climb back up, but I was on welfare, didn't have a job, didn't even know how I was going to be a provider. And it's funny because this person, I remember her father asking her, like, "Hey, are you sure you want to attach yourself to that ship? Because it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. It may not be pulling out of the harbor."
Mm,
Um, but I remember that it was her words of saying, "No, Dad, you don't understand. He has potential, and not the kind of potential that he might do something. His potential is he will do something with his life."
yes.
Period, point blank. And so I look at that potential, like you said, having that potential that your wife is able to identify within you and say, well, that's actionable potential that she's seeing. Similar to coming from the military, you have actionable intelligence. There's intelligence, and then there's actionable intelligence, intelligence that you can actually take action on to affect or impact a situation. So that actionable potential is critical for the life that I have lived, is been critical in pushing through those walls that I may have established, those walls, whether it's a doubt or a insecurity that I may have, or even in doing this intersation, it has been critical of saying, I'm going to do it, set the time. Okay, now figure out everything with YouTube.
Hmm.
That
And you got
is
that's your time right there. Go.
right. Now you have this weekend to figure it out because next week you got an interview that you're going to be doing. So it's that it's that not intersation. I'm sorry. It's that actionable potential that I'm talking about that I feel like in the stages that you just described over a 20-year brief summary, those are the things that allow us to push forward and move into that transformational period. Um, I don't want to linger on anything too long because we have 45 minutes to talk and we have 15 minutes to give people an opportunity to ask questions. But
Okay.
and you guys feel free to ask questions as we go. I appreciate the praise and that you guys are rolling with us while we're going. But if you have a question, want to jump in, or if you want to add something, please let me know. So the next thing I would like to actually ask you is, so in any transformation, whether it's a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, a moth, or whatever it may be, a larva becoming a fly, it doesn't matter what it is. In any transformation, there are some challenges that have to be overcome.
Hmm.
What were some of those defining challenges for you in your transformational process that really, like, you could tell that these were like the fork in the road in your life, and you had to make a decision on which way you were going to transform?
Oh, that is huge. I got to back into this a little bit gracefully if I can take a little intellectual privilege.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, I got to repeat, I would have to, most of the decisions, probably 90% of them of or more, that I thought I was making, many of them were made for me and some of them were made despite me. I would have to embellish quite a bit just to claim 1 out of 10 of the decisions that I've tried. And even that 1 out of 10, it probably just turned out all right. So my success rate is like Muggsy Bogues trying to dunk on Manute Bol. It just, man. And the other way around, my failure rate is more like Ray Charles at an outdoor gun range. I promise
Right.
you, I'm prone to miss because I'm one of those thinkers. I'm an analytical guy. I like to think about different things and idealistic. And I had a little bit of the Southern Baptist pastor with a little bit of the the salesman and then the teacher. So I'm still trying to find that in me. So
Mm,
bear with me as I try to get through that question. But I'll say this, I am grateful to those strong believers,
mm,
those who had those prayers and that positive reinforcement that outshined my ability to make any excuses. That's what got me mid transformation today. All right, so two of the ones, I got to put that disclaimer out there. You're going to lose some of your fans, I promise. They,
that's all
they
right.
don't need me just to jump into it. They got to know I'm still a work in process. So two of the things that were really pivotal for me, one of them is the toxic masculine personality that I had. I was very toxic. Toxic, as in chauvinistic, as in a woman can't tell me anything, as in I am the man of the household, as in I determine my future, and the white supremacist system is not going to hold me back. The drugs in the community aren't going to hold me back. The appeal for legalized and decriminalized marijuana. There is so many different things that could have been that turning point for me that I can go down individual stories, trying to keep it high level so you save your viewers, right, man? I don't want to go too deep. But the toxic attitude, like here I am in a capitalist society, and how could I allow any of these laws that really weren't written for me? They were mostly written to discriminate against me. This is an entrepreneurial endeavor. You have tobacco being grown internationally on countries, and we've seen the death rate of tobacco. And now you're going to tell me that it is a criminalization for me to offer marijuana? Now,
Mhm.
it didn't make sense to me. So my toxic masculine mentality was like, well, I can fight that system and I can grow what I want to grow and I can do what I want to do. And then I met this woman and she was like, yeah, and it would probably be better if you didn't. And so, woman, what are you going to tell me? You're in a direction, you want to go down this clean and citizen route and you want to do these things. If that's the personality that you want to have, is to be compliant and complicit with what these laws state, telling you that's your system, that's your world over there. But as for me and my society and the things that I think I'm going, that Nino Brown complex, that Tony Montana, that there is nothing in this world that can stop me. Not my woman, not my parents, not these police, not the system that could lock my little tail up when I think I'm
Right.
doing. But yes, all of that could really stop me. And my toxic mentality was the thing that needed to transform at that point. Come to find out, that was like early 90s into 2000s. Come to find out, they're legalizing it in 27 states. They're working on it, but they're not quite there yet. So we'll let that live and let that breathe. Number one, that was a turning point for me, was choosing not to become a dope boy.
Mm, that,
So you
hey,
see, you see, I had to walk into that intellectually,
right.
right? You can't just throw that out there in the beginning. You got to kind of slow ball that one, man.
I was gonna be a drug dealer. I
I
mean,
was
let
gonna
me
be
back that
I
up.
was gonna be a good one too, boy. I had a green thumb and never mind. We'll
Right.
save that one.
But
Then the
see that
second one. Oh, sorry.
because I wanna elaborate on that first one.
All
That's
right,
what
go
I mean
ahead. Go
about that's what I mean
ahead.
about being like these deep conversations that are just honest and transparent. Because the
Yes, sir.
reality is we all have made bad decisions before, and it's our stubbornness typically. At least for myself, I know I can be stubborn. I'll decide. I don't care if the wall's there. I'm gonna run through it, even if I have to knock myself unconscious 10 times. So
Yeah.
it's understanding that you're able to identify that toxicity in that, because in one way that can serve you a purpose and get you through some tough times, but in another way that toxic behavior can also eat at you on the inside and actually deteriorate from who you really want to become. The question isn't, well, do I become a drug boy or do I become a D boy? The question is what do I want to achieve? And if becoming a D boy allows that or doesn't allow that, that's really the question, is what do I want to achieve? Now, I'm not, please, because I know this is recorded and we live, I'm not saying become a drug dealer by any means.
Please don't.
um, but you're to follow up, you're actually kind of touching some of the things that I will probably be talking about in my next intersation, which is going to be about being in the pressure cooker of America, where you demonize a behavior, selling drugs and smoking weed and all these different things. And now you have these states that are coming around and saying, marijuana is not that bad. Go ahead and smoke it. Unfortunately, for the people who have already been demonized, who have criminal records or who have things that they have been convicted for in relations to marijuana, now they are not allowed to sell the very product of which they were locked up for, that is now legal to sell. So you're right in many ways, and part of that compulsion to fight and resist and rebel against the system, uh, It can work for you in the long term, but you have to be smart about it. You work to legally change something so that way you could participate. And now you're not alienating yourself from other opportunities. There have been opportunities in my life because of my past, my choices, my mistakes, that I've learned and grown from, that are no longer available to me because of choices that I made. And it was because
Hmm.
of that toxic mentality, where almost like I felt like what you were just saying, it felt like like your sales pitch on the Moses Jenkins brand. And I
Yeah.
very much had I'm Billy Rowe brand about myself. So it was like, I'm Billy Rowe, I do things this way, either you get with it or you don't. And there's still things about me that I am that way about, but I'm also open to hearing other personalities. I may not agree in the moment, but I am very reflective to be able to pull that inside of me and say, does that ring true to me? Does that go through my heart, come out on the other side and say, yeah, that's the truth? So that's what I wanted to say before you jump into round number two. Go ahead, shoot.
Yes, sir. So I want to add one more point to that. The productive capacity of those folks who had been demonized and criminalized. They had locked up felonies, so now they couldn't get homes. This was the 90s as well, in early 90s. Millions, like what is it, like 4 million incarcerations just on marijuana cases alone. 4 million. Let that sink in. How many homes that is? What is the true productive capacity of 4 million of our citizens, especially in a cash crop? How many acres of land could they have afforded to buy at this point had it not been a prohibition against it? I won't harp on it too long. Like I say, that's my toxicity starting to boil back up. But the
Mm,
second one, though, the second one was probably even more detrimental to my health had it not stood corrected. Um, and that was hypersexuality. And this is one of the ones that I deal with even now.
mm.
Hypersexuality, from the porn, the
Don't tell the
explicit
don't tell
videos,
the
from
truth
the,
to him.
yeah,
Don't
I
tell the
gotta go. No, I can't even sugarfoot around that one, man. And I know men probably not gonna relate to that. They ain't gonna relate one bit. I won't get one amen on that one. Not one hand raised, not nothing, man. Not from the music videos, the box. We used to have a box, right? Them little late night 10 o'clock TV, the tip drill. What was his name? Nelly came out with
truth.
tip drill and drop down and get your eagle on. And all of those images and visions were, man, let me see. It probably happened even before then. It was the expectation of being a player that was something that resonated inside of my head. The expectation that you're supposed to have multiple relationships, the expectation that when you're in these relationships, this is some of the treatment that you can expect if you act this way. This is some of the treatment that you can expect if you act this way. So I wanted to be one of those hardline players. In my mind, that was living up to the standards that my big brothers and big cousins had set out for me. They were the models that I wanted to emulate because, they were in what I deemed successful. They had job or apartments, jobs, they had women, they had the cars, they dressed nice, they had all of those things that in my limited thinking, that's what really mattered. But the things that really mattered now in my hindsight and in my reflection is not just what you have on the outside, but what you have on the inside. How are you able to treat people better? How do you make people smile? How do you make people feel after their interactions with you? I have interactions now that I say I can meet like a janitor or let me see, the cook. Um, I'll give an actual real life. I'll get off of outside the box. Let's jump back into the box. Corporate America experience. I was in a rotational, one of those business leadership rotational programs, and it was 8 months, 7 months actually at a site, which is the site that I'm at now. But getting there, I was pretty cool with everybody. Open up, have conversations, say how you doing, pick fights, talk about the not fights, but talk about sports teams, what they're doing, talk about the things that they like. Hey, what do you do on the weekends out here? I'm new out here, just to find out a little bit more about folks. So those were generally the conversations that I would have and be open to. I left for 7 months, 8 months, graduated, came back like so in all about 10 months, and then came back and the cook remembered who I was, what my name was, what my order was, still after 10 months later. So that's what I'm talking about, the impact of the way that you can make people feel. But that still comes, and I don't want to be too long-winded. It comes after being able to get that hypersexuality in check, which is in a long way, in a long shot, probably due to my wife putting her foot down quite a couple of times, right there on my neck, right there on my toes, letting me know, Moses, you can't go to the strip club like you want to go to. See what it's doing to you. Moses, you can't have those long-term or long-distance relationships with those folks who are, just out for, money or whatever it is. See what that's going to do to you and your family. Those opportunities where you can be investing, those opportunities where you could be supporting your children doing X, Y, and Z. So I was one that really believed in the player lifestyle, and so I wasn't going to check myself on that. I was not going to call myself to the court or to the floor and say, Moses, having those type of relationships with people who are not your wife are not right. I'm the
Right.
one who still holds to like, woman, what are you trying to tell me about relationships when you can go serve your, your boss? I almost opened up that can again. I'm gonna stop right there.
All
I
right.
almost went back into my mode, man.
Let me jump really quick because Bruce just asked you a question. Said,
Oh,
Moses,
did it?
what
Okay.
point caused you to check yourself? What point caused you to say, pump the brakes?
On the second one, hypersexuality, on that one, that's still a hard one for me. I
Mm,
gotta promise you that, man. I struggle with it. So there's a number of things that I still do. So the Instagram, everybody knows when a man goes on Instagram, he's scrolling, and the only thing that's gonna make him double stop, not even double tap. He probably won't double tap anymore, but he'll probably scroll and he'll stop for a second. Is them booty pickers, them booty pics, man. And it's one of those ones. And so jumping inside of that DM and like, hey, I'm in town, or I'll be in town on a certain day. Maybe you want to link up or something like that. Doing that stuff just wasn't as productive. I spent a lot of money that I had the money though, and it is probably a little bit of success going to my head. My wife didn't like it. Long story short, my wife didn't like it. Couldn't stand me, who I was in those moments. She was kind of trying to be supportive of the husband and of the relationships and of my vibe,
hmm
but she really didn't like it. And for me, I really didn't like the way that it made her feel not liking what I was doing. We still talk it out. We're still coming to an understanding. I'm still dealing with it. Blame it on my zodiac. I am a Scorpio, or blame it on my immaturity. Blame it on an intergenerational hyper masculinity or hypersexuality. Blame it on the media. Blame it on whatever. But it's one of those areas where I am still mid transformation, my brother Bruce.
Okay. All right. I hope that answered your question, Bruce. Even though you said them booty pics, man.
Oh yeah, them booty
Uh,
pics. I ain't all the way stopped, brother Bruce. I still scroll through my Instagram. I just don't double clap no more, man. You heard me, man. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. It's the first one, the inaugural. So I gotta
right.
be honest, right?
Honesty. We spit nothing but the truth here. So I think one of the things that you did say before you answered Bruce's question that was really important was how you treat people, and I am a firm believer of how people treat people is a direct reflection of what's going on in the inside, whether it's the peace or the chaos on the inside of them. And so that going back to that restaurant, I actually I'll go to one of my own stories. I was a server in a restaurant at a Applebee's, and I would get tons of tips. Like I'm an analyst, so I like to look at numbers and factor things out. I think I was making almost like $28 an hour at Applebee's as a server part time. Um, but I would treat people the way I wanted to be treated when they came in for service, when they came in to eat. And I would get customers that people would be like, oh, I don't want that person. They're always complaining about everything. And so I'd go over and I'd talk to that person and I'd say, oh, what can I get you today? And I kind of get a feel for what it is. And it turns out a person may have a gluten allergy, and that's why they're overly picky. They may have a gluten, butter, dairy, all kinds of allergies. And so they're out trying to have a good time to eat, but you're annoyed by their experience. And so you give them, I'm not going to cuss on this first video. I might end up cussing later on, you guys. So
Yeah,
forgive me
maybe
if I do.
episode 3, man. Episode
Episode
3.
three. Okay, episode three. But you give them crappy service. And now because they have this crappy service, you're saying that they have the attitude when really it's a reflection of the attitude that you had about what they wanted. So I've had to learn that even when I get into shouting matches, I had an experience I don't even want to share right now,
Mhm.
like 2 or 3 months ago, where I was pissed. I wanted to go in. I said some things that were mean. I meant them, but I said them. And I had to really pull myself back and say, okay, let's take this feedback, though it's not coming in the most constructive manner for me. Let's take this feedback and see how I can apply it. But right now, what I need to do, because I can't apply it in this anger moment, I need to remove myself from the situation. So I remove myself from the situation, and then I go back and replay the conversation when I'm at a place of peace. Mo, do me a favor and make sure there's no questions being asked on the right, because I won't see them right now while I'm talking. Um, so,
Somebody said they better be in episode 3, though.
oh, there will be.
I
There
think
will
that's Teresa.
be.
So I think Teresa, like, yeah, I better be in that one then, where the cussing can come out.
Teresa,
Yeah.
you curse? You curse? No. um, Teresa's my food soulmate, by the way, in Utah. She's married, but she's my food soulmate in Utah. Her husband's cool too. But I had to come to a place where I was removed from the emotion, because really that's what it was. It was removing myself from the emotion so that I could filter through the information that was given to me and apply what was necessary and spit out at the rest. Eating watermelon, you're going to chew the pulp, spit the seeds out. You're going to eat the chicken, throw the bones away. You're not going to eat the bones. Well, some people do. Miss
Yeah,
McClendon,
my dad will tear that bone up,
yeah,
but okay.
bone marrow and everything.
Yeah, to the
I'm not.
crunchy part.
I should say I'm not gonna do that. But that is the thing is being able to understand and gauge who you are or what your internal climate is based on how you are responding and interacting with those around you. So I thought that was really important and powerful what you said, brother, in a long-winded kind of way. I apologize. Um, the next question I have, and by the way, we're at about 32 minutes, so we still got about 15 minutes left. But the
Yes,
next
sir.
question that I wanted to ask you was, uh, were there any transformations in your life that were immediate? Like you knew without a shadow of a doubt, because kind of when you said, your wife was kind of staying on top of you on things, it was like, okay, she's continuing to bring this to my attention, so I have to change. Or so I decide to change. You don't have to do anything. So I choose to change. Were there any experiences that you had that were transformational for you that were like chicken, egg, chicken? It doesn't matter which direction. But were there any things that were like that for you?
um, Nah, I'm a slow learner. Analytical is going to take. I got to go through the process of. Nah, let me evaluate what's in it for me, what's in it for you. Is this something that she was doing to just manipulate me because she wants to gain some sort of control, or was it just me? You know what I'm saying? Am I disadvantaging myself by? I was overthinking the hell out of a lot of things. I will say, damn it, I just had it too. Um, I don't think so. Like immediate change, probably not. The thing that I was really dealing with um in my music phase, I don't even call it a phase. I love music. I still love music to this day. I go back to Duke Ellington and all that. You can't stop me. I'll be at work just smiling and waving. I'll stand up and just start dancing. They be looking at me like, Moses, sit down. We in a call center, bro. What you doing? I be like, man, I'm feeling it right now. They be like, feeling what? Man, I be like, man, you don't hear that music? If they don't got a music or a vibe in them, then if they do have a music and a vibe in them, we could connect from across the room, across the country. I feel
Right.
that vibe. And so for me, I had it so deep though, it was forcing me out of the workspace. My productive capacity was very limited. And being at home and being all right being at home, being all right with my wife paying all the bills, being all right with not having, any money saved, not being able to contribute to what we eat. I couldn't provide food, anything like that for my family was something I needed to not be all right with.
Mm, okay.
And from that perspective, it's a heck of an advantage to have, the government as a social net that can help us out in our time of drastic need. The Section 8 housing, or they can give you room and board. They can give you WIC. Like you said, you started off in a position where you were even in food welfare or food stamps or something like that,
Hmm.
right? And so having that, when we first moved to the college out to Atlanta from we sold both cars, got one truck, threw whatever we could put in the back of the truck, and just drove to Atlanta. And she had called somebody. We had a house out there, but no real furniture. We didn't even have a U-Haul. Like I'm talking the back of an SUV truck. No beds. Went to Walmart and got those. And then she didn't have a job lined up. And I was going to school, so I ain't got no job lined up. Um, so it's like, what you gonna do? Wait until you get a refund check, which is essentially a loan, so you can
Right.
rent a meal. Like Jesus Christ. I mean, but so it was some points in my life where we had to realize, and even before going to college, where I had to realize and where we had to realize. I use the word we a lot, and when I say we, I'm referring to my wife and I,
Okay.
and somewhat the kids, but them kids and sit their ass down somewhere. Oh, sorry, episode three.
Oh,
I
Mo,
was
you done killed it the first one.
my bad. And them kids, man. Them kids that do it to you.
It's all good, brother.
Yeah, but that was it. It was a long draw to try to pull me out of being content with just the music. Because
Mm,
I could have lived in a trailer. I could have lived in a woods, a cottage in the woods. I could have lived anywhere on this earth, maybe even on the moon, as long as I had that keyboard and that music.
okay. So there was a question that Teresa asked you. She said, Moses, or I'm sorry, she said, Mo, what do you do with people who aren't liking your transformation, meaning the naysayers, the haters, those who are going to be against you growing? And I got a lot to say about this, but I want you to say it
Yeah.
first.
Mine's would be short, man. There are 7 billion, 8 billion, 7 to 8 billion people in this world. I'm trying to put the positive impact and have a good feeling with as many of them as I can. If I can get to 1 million, that would be a purpose-driven life. If I can get to 100,000, that would be a purpose-driven life. If I can even get to just having a positive impact on 50,000 or 25,000 folks in my short lifetime, I mean, I'm doing pretty good. And that's who I kind of focus my energies on. Those who don't like my transformation or are still looking at it, well, you're not rich yet, or you haven't devoted yourself to this enough, you're not in the physical condition you're at. Moses, get that damn tooth fixed finally. There's a whole bunch of things that can be thrown at me to try to knock me off my vibe, but that's just not the type of music that I create. If I go into the studio with somebody and they want to go back to the drugs and the alcohol, I'll be like, yeah, that's cool, but you'll probably end up taking my verse off because my verse probably won't go into any of that stuff anymore. I'm just not on that different wavelength. White supremacy is one of the things that I kind of do reflect on a bit, and its ability to manipulate our minds by controlling the education, the media streams, the jobs, the opportunities that are available. It's not really a free market, but they do control the market systems, which products go on the shelves, which ones don't. And all of this kind of plays to the impact of trying to degrade my style, my leadership, and my value in this world. And that's probably in the back of my mind or just through my own black lens or whatever. Maybe it's not as unfavorable as it used to be, but the way I see it, those things still exist. And that negative energy is all I need or all I really needed to compel me to say, well, Moses, what can you do to connect with folks who are trying to get more black products on the shelves or more even Hispanic people products on the shelves or Asian folks products on the shelves? Why, when I go to Walmart, there are millions, literally millions of products that I could purchase, and most of them from the wrappers to the ink to the product inside of it, all of that, the means to which it got there, the trucks, the roads, the highways, the electricity, the water that went into it, all of the means of those productions in every product probably has their name on it. And it's hard to find blacks who are in that CEO position who own some of that stuff. And until we actually get there, I just really don't have time with people who are like, Moses, you ain't transforming fast enough for me. Baby, I'm doing me, baby. I'm trying, man. I'm just trying to keep people happy. Like, I'm one of those guys. If we can be happy, let's rock out. I love that love. The power of love is undeniable. I live in a love centered world, not the capitalist centered world, although capital is a part of where we're at now. But hey, my mission, positive impact in the lives, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Let's get to 1 million. Hopefully
All
that
right.
answers the question.
It does. I want to add to that because one of the things that I do at the beginning of every year, especially in social media, where you can be inundated with negativity, you gonna just slurp the straw? Can you mute your phone while you
Oh, my
slurping the
bad, man.
straw
Me,
off?
that's good strawberry, man. You tripping? You go to Popeyes for that good strawberry. I need that last drop, bro.
I ain't mad at you. But every year at the beginning of the year, I go through my social media and I literally ask about 200 friends. Friendship is something that's very important to me. I mean, there's a friend in here, Jennifer Chambers. She actually, we have had probably, I think we've had over 1,000 conversations at this point in our life. And she is very much a person who will tell you, shoot you straight. She'll tell you how it is. She'll tell you what she thinks. She gives you her non-biased opinion. And there have been times where she has talked to me. We have the wonderfulest conversation on the planet. There have been other times where she'll be talking to me and I'll just be like, and I'm
Mm,
quiet because I'm mad because what she's telling me is true, but I haven't gotten past the mad part yet. So I have to wait until I get past the mad part to interact with to interact with her
yes.
to let her know, hey, I hear what you're saying. And then, we'll be talking like a week later and she'll be like, oh, I see you're applying what I told you. Huh, that's interesting. That's true friendship to me. A friend should be able to hold you accountable. I did a video, I don't know, last week or the week before last, and it was talking about which call do you want to be. And one of the key things in that was respect, not coming to somebody disrespectful and saying, Moses, you're not changing fast enough. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. But coming to you as a brother and saying, look, Mo, I love you, man. I call you cousin Mo. That means I consider you family. How can I consider you family and not want the best for you? There's some things that I see that maybe you do see or don't see that you need to address, man, because I don't want those to come back and bite you in the butt when it comes to your success, because your success is my success. My success is your success. And that is the success of the neighborhood that we came from. So when we're out here as young black men, we still young, even though my hairline is way back.
Yeah,
We
push
still young.
back.
I ain't going to the dye thing. I'm good. I'm gonna just go ahead and let it go.
Might
But
get you one of the man lace fronts. They got lace fronts for men now.
nope. um, but when I see, one of my brothers from my neighborhood growing and shining, the things that I'm seeing O'Shea do online, growing and shining in a different country, growing and shining. Like when I see that, it motivates and inspires me to want to do better. I want to jump really quick because we're almost at 45 minutes and I want to give more opportunities to ask questions. But my son, shout out to my son, Ezekiel Rowe, my firstborn. Uh,
Zeke.
he asked the question on how do you identify actionable potential? So being that it's my son, I know you're my guest, but I got to say my words to my son first. I'll let
Get
you
in.
come second. Um, Actionable intelligence is what you know within yourself. You know what you're capable of. For instance, I can speak directly to you as your father. I know by observing you what you're capable of. I know that you're applying yourself or you're not applying yourself because you're just as articulate, you're just as deep thinking as me, as your father. So for me to see when you're not living up to that potential, that actionable potential, not like, you can run a million miles and not get tired, but that actionable potential, you can sprint for 100 yards. I'm positive you can do that. I'm positive if I threw you a ball on a route, you'd catch it and you'd run the rest of the route. You wouldn't be like, okay, I caught it. I'm kind of tired because I ran to get here. So that's that actionable potential that I'm talking about. And how you identify it is practice, 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 but it's not a physical practice. It's a mental practice of being honest. I talk to you about honesty all the time because I understand that not only is it important that you're not lying to us as your parents, it's important that you're not lying to yourself. There are many situations that I've gotten into that I had no business being in because I lied to myself. I said, yeah, I can be at that girl's house and I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to do anything. And
Episode
then,
three. Episode three.
oh, my
Episode
bad, my
three.
bad, my bad. Episode three. Episode three.
Yes, sir.
Um, Hey, I'm just saying he's old enough to hear these things now. But there's been plenty of situations where I knew that I wasn't putting myself in the right position or in the right environment or procrastinating and doing not doing the things that I should be doing. I knew that. And the reason why I did it and allowed it to happen and was not willing to be transformational and work on that actionable potential is because I was lying to myself. So when you start to identify your actionable potential, you actually get better at it the more honest and transparent you are with yourself because it takes that secrecy off of being afraid of success. That is one thing that I have struggled with and I still work through. Like Mo said, hey, that's a transition I'm making about, getting out there and being on a video and talking and engaging with people. That is a constant battle where I may sit in my apartment and think, man, I'm not good enough to be talking to these people. They don't want to hear what I have to say. And in the meantime, there's people whose lives I could be touching that I'm not touching because I'm not operating on that actionable potential. I know that I'm comfortable talking with people. I know that I get along with people very well and I'm very personal. I know these things about myself. So I need to actually be honest with myself and say, Billy, if you're this good with people in person, what it doesn't matter to you whether you're on a video or not. So that's how you identify that actionable potential. Mo, what do you have to add to that?
Absolutely. I love that authentic self, man. There's a natural self that you have that is attractive. It's magnetic. When you can be your natural self, people who can be their natural self are there. And then the second part, just being your natural self and then being so the type of walls that people put up, there's some walls that they put up to protect themselves because they either have something to hide or they think they have something of value. If you're someone who knows that you have something of extreme value, you're going to naturally have some walls set up. And those walls, in the form of, if we can speak metaphorically again, are your standards, your values, those things that you stand on, that you believe to be true. And at sometimes you will listen and learn from other people what theirs are. But nonetheless, your values and what's attracted to you will be people who have that similar value set. By you having that wall and you seeing some people who have up that similar wall, i.e., if it's, we really love games and you're not ashamed of that, then games is something that might draw you all together. When you're talking about it, you feel comfortable. They're listening, they're laughing, they're with you. They're not shunning you or putting you off. Or if it's, I really love to work. I was a workaholic for a period of time. Being somebody that can really go into the work, really go into the numbers and the data, be analytical. I had a geek mind, so we could talk about science. That was something that we could really go into. Being able to find your natural self respected and appreciated in the presence of those who are also demonstrating their natural self. That's when you find people who are the most genuinely natural on the inside. as well as some of the reflective things. So when you observe just with your eyes alone, you might see the things that are the most distracting, like pretty hair, pretty skin tone, and that's what I'm attracted to. So my natural self, my base instinct is attracted. So therefore, that's actionable. And that might be a bit misleading, or it might be like the people you see. Oh, he has the nice car. Like I said, previous experiences. They have the nice car. They have the items, luxuries. Look how many chains Two Chains got on. I thought his name was Two Chains. That got to be four. So the gold chains.
Right.
I told you I still got that music in me, right? So not to hate on that material, but how do they embellish? That could also be the wall that they have up. Oh, they have all the pretty girls around them in the club, they're in the vi. All of those things could just be the reflection of the walls that they have up. It could be a reflection of the value set that they have. It could also be something that's probably not as attractive to you. So in a nutshell, being your natural self, and even when you're observing that, how that naturally or pulls people towards you, and then being able to discern. I think that's the word,
That is
discern,
correct. Yes, sir.
when their value sets are similar based on not just the things that you see, but also the things that you hear.
Mm. All right. Well, we got about 10 minutes left in this. I want you guys to have four ornaments, four chains, four ornaments.
Four chains, four ornaments, look like a Christmas tree.
I
I'm
want you
ready.
guys to be able to post any other questions that you may have before we get out of here in 10 minutes. Oops, I just accidentally turned my camera off. Oh, no, I didn't. Never mind. Like I said, still learning this YouTube thing. Anyway, I want you to post any questions that you may have because we're at 10 minutes. I try to be on time to start and on time to end. I realize we all have lives, and I don't want to take that for granted or misuse the time that you guys are entrusting me with. But I do want to say some things because I take notes. I mean, when Moses and I first talked about getting on this, I sent him an agenda because I come from corporate America and we operate out of agendas. So
He
there was
sure did too.
there
It
were
was almost on a PowerPoint. I'm like, bro, we just finna talk, right? You gonna call me? We had an
so
agenda.
hey, that's how I work. I'm like, hey, if we're gonna do it in excellence, let's do it in the best we can. I mean, the light situation right now here is a little bootleg, but we're gonna work on that.
Yes.
But there were some things that I wrote, and one of the things that I wrote, and it was something that I struggled with, especially coming from the hood. It was like I never wanted people to feel like in the hood that, oh, Billy was too good, is too good for the hood now, or he done grown out and he bougie and he's this now, so he doesn't really mess with the hood anymore. I I had to be okay with deciding to change for me, deciding my biggest impactful moment, my sister will tell you, was the day that Ezekiel Rowe was born. The day he was born, I went from knucklehead in the street to, okay, I got to take care of a kid. I'm still a little bit of knucklehead, but I got to take care of a kid. And my sister told me, she said, I was concerned when you told me you were going to have a kid. I was like, oh my God, not my brother. He is not
Mm.
ready. But she said the day that boy was born, I was all in from day one. So for me, it's about being okay with changing and growing, and it doesn't mean that you betrayed who you were. See, the thing is I've always been Billy Rowe. I've always been me. I've always been personable. I've always been likable. I've always been these things. And so as I've grown and as I've worked on being a deeper thinker and being more aware and awoke about the situations, not just in America, but in my own life, there were times where I had that doubt and I was afraid to venture any further from the place of familiarity. And so
Mm.
it, if there's anything I can tell you about being transformational, you have to be okay with chilling in a cocoon for a little bit to come out as a butterfly. Because other than that, you're just gonna be a dead caterpillar. And I don't got anything against caterpillars, but that's not how I want to live my life. I had to be okay with moving from that boyhood into that manhood. So when where, like you said in the beginning, where sex and cars and money equaled manhood, now I understand it's intellect and the way you respect yourself and the way you respect other people. And I don't mean just respecting women. I mean respecting people, period, no matter what job they do. And so for me, that is a critical part of transformation, of being transformational, that I just can't let this video go by and not mention uh, that. I'll let you shoot, and then we'll shoot some final thoughts. I have like four tools that I want to share with everybody. Go ahead, brother.
All right, so a couple of key points. That toxic behavior that we were able to demonstrate at one point with autonomy, toxic behaviors, whether it was our hypersexuality or masculinity and how we treated folks in the world, that is a major part of the transformation story that many people ought to be able to relate to, and that's intergenerational, right? It's also intercultural. So what are we passing down to our children? What did they receive from, I mean, what did I receive? What did, as generations are supposed to one up our father, we're supposed to do a little bit better. So I think those are two of the issues, two of the major challenges that will continue to transform even as we learn more. Right now, the censorship on the black woman and on women in universally, the censorship is starting to be lifted a little bit, where they may not be completely accepting what the woman has to say and her value, but there are avenues for her to speak now. Her voice is still echoing in the chambers of the Grand Canyon, and eventually they will be in corporate America. I think there's only four women in the top Fortune, 100 companies as CEOs. I think there's only like six African Americans who are in the top 500. So our voices are still echoing, but we're starting to find ourselves heard a little bit, and that's still a reflection of toxic behavior demonstrated from an overall system. Now, capitalism at some sense seems to be diametrically opposed to love, and I don't think so, because I'm a strong believer in strong believers. We got some praying folks who their prayers are not in vain. They still working with us, and conversations like this are just that premise, that impetus that we need, and we need a lot more of this on many other platforms that allow that love to be spread, that transformational love to actually start to take a hold. And lastly, there's a lot of media stories that are out there that would make or cause folks to believe otherwise. There are a lot of stories out there that would cause folks to be otherwise. But where I come from, there were mentors. Where I come from, they were real good men, men who
Hmm.
were willing to go the extra mile and put it all. Oh, don't be taking them kids up to the mountains and having no leadership retreats and all, all the things they could have said about the men who took a chance on us, and the millions of dollars that were generated for our little neighborhood for community beautification, bringing in the urban league, doing a lot of things that you'll see the plaques on the wall for. But it was really those men, those Crandall Rankins, those elder. I got to shout out my elders'
Elder
names one more
Lee.
time. Elder Lee, the Harry Blocks, my pastor, Pastor Brian C. Wyatt, and those folks connecting churches, connecting the community, connecting politicians, connecting, businessmen, the deacons, the trustees, going that extra mile just to make sure we were in a safe and protected space. Our community had a wall up around it, and it was able to stand on a few values because of
Hmm.
folks like them. So
All right.
got to drop that. Oh wait, let me one more thing. Got to shout out one of the biggest black YouTubers right there. Black YouTubers, my guy O'Shea the Duke Jackson came
Mm.
and paid us a little tribute. I know he put it on his wall and everything just to give him a shout out. He's allowed me on his platform. I was on his platform even today, but definitely one of those guys who's pivotal. He's an international black YouTuber. Travels to Africa, continents in Africa. I think it was Uganda, Kenya, maybe Uganda, a couple of places out there. Has a live stream. O'Shea Duke Jackson was in the building. Got to get that man a shout out for coming and blessing the chat one time. And my cousin
Appreciate that
Bruce
love.
Gatewood, a man of his word, stepping on in there and listening to a brother speak. So those are my closing words, man. Thank you all.
All right. Well, I got a question here. This will be the last question. Then I'll end with a couple of tools. The question is from Jen Chambers. It says, "What advice do you have for those of us who are with people who need motivation to be better, but are not receiving the message on a positive wavelength?" Really, that's what I think she's trying to say.
Ooh. See, yeah, I thought I was just going to provide a glimpse into my transformation story. So, this is a little something about me and my journey, and but now maybe it does inspire someone who is listening. Um, so, with that request, it is first to acknowledge the transformation within that has to go along. Like I said, I was set in my ways, set there. I stood on that square. And even in those situations where I was with a good woman, I was still trying to hold to me being set in my ways. This is what my grandfather Nim said. My grandfather had three wives. What you talking
Mm,
about? He was the man on the community. You cannot tell me that I'm not to be in multiple relationships.
mhm,
So I was hard. That struggle really has to come with self. Maybe it's a military experiences with death or near death trauma experiences that probably shook me at my core. Seeing too many homeboys who were they were good dudes. They were young bloods or whatever it was that you want to call them. The drug, marijuana, whatever it was that was in their system, however you want to try to demonize them. These were my young guys. These were my dudes when we were young. And seeing some of them lose their lives, maybe that trauma still existed with me. But there were some things that happened to me that forced me to re-examine my square and to go back into reflection. So with that, I don't know what it's going to actually take. I really don't give too much advice. I can tell my story, but when it comes down to it, I believe that there is something that happens in this world that shakes people at their core in these instances. If they are not listening, what will cause them to listen? I'm not one that says leave them. I'm not one that says don't be the cause of his violent episode near death. I'm gonna get you. Don't do that.
Right.
But
Don't throw
but
no hot grease on him.
yeah,
We
don't hit him with the hot grease. But I'm not sure there. How do we get folks to listen? Besides the fact that there are a lot of positive energy and a lot of people who are receptive out there in this world who are willing to allow that positive energy to
to flow.
flow.
Okay. So we got about 15 viewers in here right now. If you guys could do me a very huge favor, if you've enjoyed this podcast or this, I don't know what we're going to call it, this intersation, do me a favor, please go down, subscribe to the channel. Invite those. You're saying, how do you motivate people who may not be receptive to positivity? Invite them to things like this. At least they have the ability to say yes or no to it. If we never invite them, I struggled with that when I was inviting people to see this. If we never invite them, then they never know to be somewhere. They never know something exists. So subscribe, please click the bell. It'll tell you when I'm live. I'm planning to do one or two of these a week. So you're welcome to join in on the next one live. I want to leave you guys with a couple of tools. I know I said I wanted to end on time, but give me like 2 minutes. I want to leave you guys with a couple of tools. So when it came to being transformational, I started thinking about what tools that I've used. There was 4 tools that I wrote down. The first tool was awareness of who you are and where you want to go. That goes right back to what Moses said at the beginning, as far as having that awareness and understanding and being open and experiencing the world in its entirety. Number 2 is you have to have a dedication to being the best possible you ever. And if you're committed to being the best possible you, the current you that you are will never suffice. Like, I don't mean you're not good enough. You're not special and valuable in your current state, but you'll never be complacent with where you are. There will always be something that you will be striving for. They kind of say like happiness. Happiness is, you think it's one thing and then you achieve this one thing and then you're like, oh no, happiness is here, and it keeps moving because of the fact that happiness is not a destination, it is a complete journey of life. Number 3 is you have to be able to silence the doubt. That is my biggest challenge that I have. Really, the reality is we can do whatever we are wholeheartedly committed to doing. So if you can silence the doubt, that eliminates one of your major obstacles, yourself, out of the way of being transformational. And lastly, it's about looking forward. It's okay to glance back, but when I'm driving my car on the freeway, I don't just stare at the rearview mirror to see where I've been. I watch where I'm going. So you have to be able to look forward so that you have a solid view on your point of reference on the direction that you're going, and you can see if you're veering off course from where you want to be. So those are the tools I want to drop you with. I hope you guys have enjoyed this first inaugural session of the first row intersession. Intersation. Intercession. I took him to church, cousin. But I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in live. Please share it. Comment in the comments when we go off live. But I love you guys. Thank you. God bless. Have a good night. One love. Peace.